Hello.
Hello.
Hello,
Hey.
hello.
Hey,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I think I've already said Happy New Year to both of you. So, anyways, but that's not here to do it again.
Just in case,
Yeah.
At least it hasn't changed, right? Now it's not like a crappy
Yes.
New Year.
Yes. Exactly.
Hey.
Hey.
Wonder if we're getting more people, or I feel like we should.
Deep and Kieran are in, so they should probably join any minute.
Okay.
It looks like both literally and figuratively, a lot of people are still in a holiday mode.
That's right. Don't judge me.
That was the big prompt for them.
All right, well,
Could we wait for more people?
I would probably get going. I think Georgi, it's all your topics. Obviously, others can add more too.
They're from the whole EMEA part. Basically, I just added them to the doc.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, shall we start with the first one then? Ram is still typing in something, but I guess we can also add them as we speak. So yeah, first thing is that we think we're almost in a position to do a new release, have a meaningful chunk of work, which is the replaceable networker, and we also did a change to converge all the controllers in one pod. I think this was something that we were discussing for a long time, that we should do it because it will scale better and all that. So this will be the main thing in the release. I guess it comes with some breaking changes in the Helm chart because of how Helm validates. Basically, some keys will convert from dashes to camel case. I guess I'm raising this so that people in America know that they have to adjust their scripts. I don't think it will help. It will cause big problems. The replaceable networker thing was pretty much requested by SAP and it will probably be used by us. But it's still a nice thing. You can now bring in Istio or some other thing. You will then be able to write your own networker and plug it in. So that's the first one, really. More or less, it's notifying you about the breaking changes that will be a part of 060, which will probably come out soon. Yeah, if there are any comments.
Yeah, also 05 came out since we had this meeting last time. So that thing happened.
That's true, actually. And it's a big one, right? Amazon.
It's basically Amazon support plus any other things that went in the meantime, but yeah, mostly Amazon support. The domains, API endpoints are in there. Yeah, you can check the release notes.
Cool stuff. Yeah, I guess this first one is not controversial, so maybe it doesn't need a discussion. Shall we move on to the second one then? We were talking about the up revision. I think we discussed that I think last week on the internal sync, and Matt chimed in the issue, saying that we shouldn't remove the up revision because we wrote up a story trying to resolve some of the problems around the up revision, suggesting to remove it and implement restart by doing something else, like maybe delete not the app workload, but the CF process or something more kube native. But then Matt chimed in and said that some of the VMware stuff probably depends on the revision, and we should maybe leave it there. And I guess we're fine with this. But we were wondering whether the upper revision should actually be numbers that increment, because so far that has been the interface, but it wasn't working. Like it was flaking, meaning that the numbers could increment in unexpected amounts, right? Not 0, 1, 2, 3, but sometimes you miss a number and so on. So we were wondering if it will be acceptable actually to convert this up revision to just a random GUID that changes on every restart. Do you know? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I guess my thought on that is like, I feel like when we added that logic, we made a mistake. And the mistake was that we partially copied the observed generation pattern as used in controllers all over the place, but we didn't fully copy it. And probably most of the flakiness is because we didn't actually do a very good job of fully copying the observed generation pattern. So we kind of loosely copied it. That uses numbers, and I don't know if, I guess the thing that we would lose if we go away from numbers is like you wouldn't know if the stored thing is newer than your thing or older than your thing. Having said that, I'm not aware that we're relying on that anywhere. Like we don't actually compare these things to each other, I don't think.
I don't think we do, but operators might rely on that.
Right. But I guess just in general, I feel like there's an established pattern of having generations of these objects and observed generations in the status. And it would be nice if we converted to following that pattern explicitly so that we act just like a whole bunch of other objects that have controllers.
But is a generation a number starting from 0? What does it actually look like?
It's not generally integers that
here's
increment.
a doc for it. It says a monotonically increasing number.
I see. Yeah, I guess
That doesn't mean, it means it can skip a beat basically, but it will never go backwards or stay the
decreases,
same.
which probably
Is it
means
strictly
we
monotonic as well?
That's what it says. So I assume, oh, that's very formatted.
API conventions, it's a convention, I see. Because we've been assuming that having a number that keeps incrementing is just impossible.
I guess it's
I mean,
possible
what the problem
for
we
the-
observe now, what is it? That sometimes it stays the same? Or
Sometimes
and-
it stays the same, and sometimes it's bumped too far. It was different, like it was flaking in different ways.
And that's our thing, right? The app revision that stays the same or gets bumped too far.
Yeah, that's our thing that I'm talking about. Not
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of observations of observed generation. Haven't seen it much. Haven't paid attention to it, but yeah, I mean, maybe we can put it back in the controller and just let it skip, and then I guess the test can be made more flexible to check that it's strictly greater than, which will also make sure we don't repeat revisions because that's not good.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
if we can
wondering
keep
the... Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, like, if we can keep the concept of a revision, that it's better for everyone because it means we already have it. It just doesn't work really well. If you can just make that what we already have work well, I guess that will be a win-win. But I think we've been assuming we cannot.
Yeah, I think it might be interesting to go look at the code where folks have implemented this observed generation pattern, because they might have already solved these problems, right? With something slightly different.
wondering if they're in an easier position than we are, because it's taken care of by some core controller of Kubernetes. Although I don't know if that will be very different from what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we have access to that code too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says it's set by the system and monotonically increasing per resource. It may be compared, such as for raw and WAR consistency. What's raw? RAW or WAW? RAW or WAW? I don't know. Read and write.
Read after write.
Read after
and-
write and write
yeah.
after write. Right.
Mm.
So it looks like Kubernetes sets it for you,
Right.
and then you keep the. And then what's the observe? So the observe thing is another field.
Yeah, so I mean, I think basically observe generation, the gist of it, we have something very similar with our revision, right? We observe the revision in our status. So I think the observe, we would just switch to using observe generation, and then we don't have to, it means we don't have to take the burden of it, increasing the revision, because we just use generation instead.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the problem is if we try to maintain this count ourselves, we will never be able, because the system isn't robust enough. Like we don't have enough guarantees. But here the system, like Kubernetes, is giving us a number we can lean on. I guess that's the idea. Okay.
Yeah, I wonder. We might still have to set it ourselves. I'm not sure if they do for us, like the way that this is nested under conditions and everything.
So what they're saying is, okay, the system gives you the generation number, and then you put the generation you observe in the condition. So you say,
Yeah.
okay, this condition was set with this when I set this condition, the value of generation was this. And I guess an observer can say, okay, the condition is this, but the generation is not that anymore. So things might have changed, / should probably have changed. I guess that's the idea. I don't know if we need all of that. If we just need to find the pods of the current, maybe we can just use generation. Because we just put it in the pods so that when you want, because in the end, what we use it so that we can know which pods belong to the current generation of the app, right? For example, for logs. So if you store that generation in the pods as a label or something, then you just query for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're guaranteed it gets incremented for you. The problem is it probably doesn't get incremented when we want it to be incremented.
Yeah,
The life cycle doesn't match the CF one.
But we could just like, instead of incrementing where we're incrementing it, we could just copy it into status.
Yeah, that's what you mean. So instead of
And then
maintaining the number,
when
we
we're
just-
looking for the pods, we could just look for the pods that match the value in the status, right?
Yeah. Which means that number will probably keep skipping. It will not be a count. It will be,
Sure. Yeah.
because that number the generation would have probably been incremented many times since last time you restarted your app. But we don't care. As long as it's a unique number,
Yeah,
it's probably fine.
like I
What-
almost think even the GUID would be fine for the way we use it, but I'm not arguing against using observed generation for what it's worth. I'm just saying it should be fine if it skips
Yeah,
around.
because the benefit of the GUID is that is the controller can default it, or a defaulter can default it without much logic around it. But I guess copying the generation into the status could actually, it's not very complicated, and the skips are probably not going to be a problem, and things can still be compared and all that, and you can lean against a number that comes from Kubernetes. But then we want to set on the app, right? And the app is something that is created by the API or the Kube TODO user. So where do we get it from?
It's in the metadata, apparently.
Metadata of what? Because if you're doing a controller that reconciles a resource and turns it into another resource, you can have the first resource and get its generation. Oh, you mean when the API creates it, we can copy it from there, I see. Because yeah, we in the controller can take it from the status because Kubernetes put it there for us. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
I think so. Even if they didn't put it there for us, there's a mechanism at that point to get it and then start setting it, I think. Like, I'm not sure Kubernetes will put it in the status without us telling it to, because resources are free to put whatever they want in the status. But there might be something in the metadata.
Oh, in the metadata.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter actually
Yeah,
where
right.
it puts it. Yep. Yeah, this is actually, this could work, I guess, and we can preserve it as much as possible as a monotonous integer. But then, like, if you imagine what the restart endpoint does right now, and if you take bumping the revision out of it, it's pretty much doing a no-op, which looks weird. So we were wondering whether we should change this experience a little bit, like have a kubectl user and you have to tell them how to restart. It will be weird to tell them, well, set it to stop, then set it to start, and that's it. Like, you're not waiting for a condition or anything. You're just setting it to another status and then back to the first status, and it just looks weird. So I guess we're arguing in the team whether we should just delete something, because this might be like, if you want to restart a pod in a deployment, you delete the pod and then it gets recreated. So can we do the same with the CF process maybe from the API shim?
But you restart an app though, right? So if you want to restart an app that has many processes, what do? You have to delete all of them?
I guess I have to do it manually for each process, which is not ideal as well. I guess the alternative is always to introduce some sort of condition that you can wait on. So you stop it, wait for it to be stopped, and then you start it again, which is not the most, yeah.
And also, to be clear, we're not deleting processes, right? We're deleting the app workload for each process. Because I think if we start talking about deleting the CF process resource, then that will cause a bunch of bad things, such as, like, that's where people save their, like, overridden process commands and everything.
Yeah, because they're defined in the manifest. So if you delete them, you kind of
they're defined in the manifest, but you're also able to use imperative endpoints to modify them further. So, like, if you delete them wholesale, then you might
lose
that
information,
stuff.
basically.
Yeah, you're deleting
they hold
tables in the
state.
database.
Mhm.
They're not completely reconciled from something else.
Yeah, but the app workload that's derived from them may be something that could be, but I haven't fully thought through the implications there. Like, there's probably not the best. Something with status and conditions that would tell it to roll is probably better.
Yeah, we have an Explorer, so I guess we don't need to find a solution now, but we just wanted to know more about the revision. I think, yeah, this was useful, the things that we talked about. So we might reshape the Explorer a little bit and see what's the best user experience for restart. But for the revision, I guess, I think the observed generation, I think, was raised even before. I think we're more or less converging towards using this thing as the revision.
Replace URL with its title. Why not? That's really neat.
I think it sounds like we are done with the second one. So on to the third one in the list. We were having some discussions around here what our next epic should be after we release 0.60. And there were different ideas, like maybe we should pick up the label annotation, the metadata stories, and finish that work that we put down earlier. I think Giuseppe had other ideas as well. So I wanted to discuss that with you a little bit, if you maybe have some good candidate for our next epic.
Mostly I wanted to ask if we could, like, how much of the current US TODO we could just borrow from, Because I think, for example, the labels and annotations epic, we had picked it up and then we put it down because something urgent came up. We could pick it up again, for example. There's another epic, which is the build and run workloads epic, which has like a couple of stories left. So maybe that would be worth finishing, maybe. It's been on for a long time. I think this is about stacks, possible. There's other interesting stories in that too. If you're not touching them any soon, we could probably just steal stuff. Or stuff that, I don't know, makes sense that we think we have enough context on. The label annotations, definitely. I think we should just finish it because it's been
It's just busy
going on
work.
forever.
Anybody can do it.
Yeah, no one wants to do it. It's not fun, but let's please get done with it. We also had ideas like, while working on that, we had ideas on how to kind of, let's say, improve validation, because current validations have a bit, like we don't like the error messages, for example, etc. That could be another interesting piece of work, but it's not necessary for finishing the epic. We could finish the epic with what we have now and then think about that. So if you see things disappear from your backlog, it's us, I guess. Just picking stuff up.
Yeah, that's fair. As I say, I think my gut instinct on that was labels annotations too, even though I know it's not the most exciting work. I think it makes the most sense. It's like half done, give or take.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, we have one more by Ram if we're done with this one.
Ram, are you around?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, this last one's yours. So
Yeah, I think it's been a while coming, but there hasn't been a proper sort of introductory blog post on the cloudfoundry.org, quote unquote, official blog about Korifi. And I thought we'd either pick like either a V 0.5 or like a 6 months of development into Korifi. And so, we're at a point where we are starting to think a certain way and build this out a certain way, or we could just pick on the epics that we're going to work next and what we've accomplished so far, and something like a retrospective of the past 6 months and what we can expect in the weeks and months to come, more or less. So I'd love to get something on that theme out there, and if anybody can like volunteer to help, give the points or write it by themselves, anything is welcome at this point, to be honest. So I'm happy to be the scribe, and jot things down and get things going. But if folks have any ideas around that, I'm happy to take those as well. There's also like a few things that we could publish to external publications like the New Stack or the Container Journal or things like that. However, the content and some of the quotes, and we'd love to have some input from the actual engineers and the PMs and the other folks that are working on this, and give it more of a personal touch, I guess. So that's really what I wanted. So let's together publish something. Let's also try and get some quotes and other things that we can give to our PR team so that they can be placed at the right places for for marketing purposes mostly.
If you want to gather inputs / info like from the Slack channel, just opening threads, that could work. Or we could just organize some sessions if you like. I guess if you have like specific ideas and specific questions, I think it's easy to. I think the team is super available. Like I think getting some of us to write the post from scratch is probably harder. But like if you need us to fill holes or provide you with information or stuff like that, I think that could be done asynchronously with Slack,
Sure.
or we can have dedicated meetings. I don't know.
Okay, I mean, I think as a first step, let me start a doc, jot a few ideas down, and then depending on how that goes, maybe towards the end of the week, I'll try to pick a time, or we could just get together on Slack or something and hash things out and see if we need a meeting. But let me get a doc going, and I think it's easier to fill in gaps and get very specific inputs at this point, rather than get folks to like sit down and dedicate time towards composing like a whole piece by themselves. So totally agree with you there. So yeah, I mean, the general themes are what have we accomplished so far? Where do we expect it to go in like the next 6 months or so? And anything specific that folks want to say in terms of who this is for, and how can it help like a persona A or a persona B? Like let's say, how can it help developers, or how can it help, I don't know, Java developers, or how can it help like people writing stuff on Go and struggling to put it on Kubernetes, or stuff like that. So I'll come up with a few specifics. We can obviously change it if it's not accurate enough, and I'll come up with some generic stuff as well that people can just comment to or add their inputs to, and hopefully that will create something that's composable and publishable or something.
Yeah, I think the docs work really well. I think last time we did it for maybe the conference, but like we had to come up with some maybe what was it, some flyer or some material that we wanted to give out to the conference, and yeah, we all pitched in, and at the end we converged to something. So we can use the same model. I think that works pretty well, because so that everyone can jump in asynchronously, given we're all scattered across time zones and stuff.
Correct. Sounds good. I'll get that going then, and I'll start shopping that around.
Any other late breaking topics? Okay. Well, there's nothing else. We should get out of here. All right. I'll see y'all later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. See you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.